Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. This is a podcast dedicated to helping accounting professionals have the premier accounting firm in their area. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, and for more than 20 years, I've been working with accounting professionals to help them achieve their goals and, in fact, get paid what they're worth offering quality accounting services. Each and every week, I have a guest on the show to address various topics that are applicable to the accounting firm, basically things that range from training the staff, offering quality services, marketing, selling, pricing, and so much more. So I invite you to listen and actually take advantage of these previous episodes. And today is going to be no exception. We have a guest on today, Tyler Otto. He's actually been a guest before, and I'm excited to have him back. Tyler happens to be the owner, along with his wife, Karen, of Specialty Bookkeeping. And this is where they developed an award-winning formula for innovating, basically running a virtual-based accounting and tax firm. His company leverages technology to simplify clients' financial processes, creating greater visibility into their financials and driving profit. One of the things that I find fascinating is the last I knew, none of his employees were local. They were all virtual. And I think that's an amazing accomplishment, considering that so many people try to actually achieve that in running their business. So Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And you are correct, Roger. All my team, my closest employee is an hour away. Beyond that, they're far, far away, multiple states over.
Perfect. Well, that in and of itself is a topic, and we talked about it last time. But one of the reasons why we have you coming back is a conversation you and I had at some conferences. You've attended our conference, GrowCon. We met at BKX, and there had a conversation about some of the challenges that are being faced by many accountants as they deal with their clients, and it's related to fraud and so forth. That's what I'm hoping to kind of talk about today. And I just think we should just jump into it, because you and I both know that there are some situations where accounting professionals are being targeted and are vulnerable to scams and so forth. Why don't we start there? Why do you feel that we're maybe a possible target?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, first of all, most bookkeepers and accountants get into this industry because they're good at it and they have some special skill to give to help clients grow their business. But most of them don't have an IT security background. They never got into this thinking, I need to learn database architecture and learn about all the scams that are out there. So first of all, a lot of us come into this rather naively. And second of all, we're key holders. We're gatekeepers. We kind of have both the gate and the key, if we want to reference Ghostbusters there. But we have so much information that we store and hold for our clients and have their trust. And if I'm a scammer, I want to go after where all of the sensitive information is, right? You don't go rob each individual person that has a bank account at the bank. You don't go to their houses. You go to the bank to get the money. Well, we're the bank of the client's information. And so we make great targets for potential hackers and scammers.
Yeah, what you're describing there is obviously we've got remote access to a lot of information, and we've got a lot of these logins, passwords, and obviously that puts us in a situation where we're a valuable target. But it's even more than just the technological side, and we can talk about the technology and what we can do to avoid some of those things with virus protections and various technologies. But let's go to even more of a personal side. I know you and I have some stories where individuals have actually experienced being vulnerable and at the same time unaware and basically the victims of a crime. So what can you tell us about, for example, cashier's checks?
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Okay. So there's a classic scam out there where whether you're selling something online and someone sends you a cashier's check for you to ship them hard goods, and then that cashier's check bounces. And so you're out the goods and you have no money, but it takes a couple days for you to realize that amount has bounced. Well, scammers have figured out how to take this into the professional realm as well. One of the people we were speaking with to get ready for this podcast, she had over 3-hour interview with this company to come online and do their outsourced accounting. And this scammer, they represented themselves as a well-known company. If you Googled the company, they had a website, they had everything. The scammer somehow had faked the email to make it look like it came from them, and she didn't catch it. And then she ultimately got on this interview, and afterwards they said, hey, we want to hire you for the job, but we have some special equipment you'll need, such as a certain computer and check printing equipment and everything that, we'll send you the check to cover for all of this. You just need to buy it from our preferred vendor so they can ship it directly to you. It makes it a lot easier. So we'll just send you the money and then you can keep the rest because, we're sending you, high 4 digits worth of money. You just keep the rest as a signing bonus. And she was over the moon ecstatic, right? Like she just landed a big client. She's getting going. It's an amazing monthly fee. And she's so excited to get this check and get the equipment and get set up and ready to go. This is, again, one of those telltale signs where most clients, they're never going to send you just straight cashier's check for you to spend the money for the equipment on their behalf. If anything, they're going to spend it on their side so they can put it on a credit card or something else to get rewards points and have controls. If they're offering to send you money first so that you can spend money with a preferred provider, that's a problem. And the way this scam would have ended if she didn't reach out to our community of bookkeepers and say, hey, everyone, like, this is awesome. I want to, celebrate that I got this new client. And everyone immediately chimed in and said, hey, no, this is a scam. What would have happened is she would have bought the equipment from the preferred provider, and she would have been putting in her own bank account information, sending out that money, and then the check would bounce, equipment would never come, and she is out the money that she just spent to buy this equipment, and she will likely never hear from that scammer again unless she tries to contact the legitimate company, who will also be confused as to who she is and why she's reaching out. So keeping an eye out for scenarios like this, because something seems so good, too good to be true, it probably is.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of things in here that I want to kind of nibble on for a moment. First of all, the whole idea that this individual, rightfully so, was celebrating this brand new client. That makes sense. The euphoria of just getting a client like this just sounds, like you said, too good to be true. And there are perhaps scenarios that are, really nice blessings. But this one here, being the scam that it was, there were a few things that you pointed out that were telltale signs that I think are important to just kind of state. The fact that they were willing to send this cashier's check with funds excess than what would have been necessary. That's the proverbial, hey, I'm going to basically grease this a little bit for your benefit, so you're excited now. That right there is, like you were describing even before it, a very common thing with online sales when people are on the local Facebook, maybe Craigslist type platforms. Yep. They're saying, hey, I'll send you this check. There's excess for you to ship the product to me. Those things are some telltale signs. The second thing that I thought was really important from this story is the fact that they reached out to a community, and the bookkeeper was able to get other people's perspectives that weren't so emotionally vested in the situation, that were able to give her some perspective and insights that she perhaps wasn't considering. So that was huge, the value of a community. The last thing is basically the fact that even though it had a perception of being a legitimate company, it appeared all good, there's a lot to be said when working with clients of, when possible, going on site. This one would have been a virtual client, maybe doing some research on the business, but speaking to someone else, calling in, making some contacts. And I think that little bit of due diligence could really pay off.
Absolutely. No, I mean, the way this story ended was after she reached out to the community and everyone said, hey, like, total scam, do not engage, do not cash that check and buy that equipment. She reached out to the company based on their website, and they said, yeah, no, like, there's no one here by that name. And so she was able to verify, yep, this is a scam.
Well, I don't want to put, anyone in a state of depression hearing that story, because there are phenomenal clients out there to be had, but it's good to be aware, and it's good to be, a little more sensitive so that you're not going to be put into these situations of, I don't want to say being gullible, but definitely taken advantage of. And so I really appreciate that story. Now, that being some scary stuff and very real stuff, that's firsthand story there. Is this just an issue for bookkeepers that are getting started, or is this something that even seasoned people are starting to experience?
Oh, it's all over the board. In fact, the bigger you grow, the more experienced you are, the bigger the target you are, because you have more clients, and so there's a lot more ability for people to come after you. I think of one specific story. In fact, Roger, let's play a game here. I'm going to tell you the intro to a story
Okay.
that I've heard from a couple other people. But this actually happened to me early in my career, and I want to see if you can spot the fraud.
Okay.
You ready for this game?
All right, here we go. Spot the fraud.
All right. So you work at a nonprofit. You are the director of finance or the bookkeeper that's doing the books for them. And all of a sudden, one day out of the blue comes a $4,000 donation through your donation portal that you are so excited to see on your client's behalf. They are beyond ecstatic, and they have no idea who this person is, but they're excited to learn about it. Well, shortly after, you get an email from this person, and they say, hey, was looking online, saw your cause, was so in love with it, and I meant to donate $400, not $4,000. I can't afford to give you $4,000 right now. Like, is there any way you could refund the $3,600 and keep the $400? Here's my credit card number. Can you just refund it? And I definitely still want to make the donation. What do you do from there, Roger?
Well, I've got a personal preference, and there's a side story to this. My problem is the fact that they're asking me to take a single transaction and turn it into this split where you're saying, keep the 400, pay me back the 3,600. I would much rather say, well, we'll just void the 4,000 and you cut us the 400. That is perhaps the lessons of life that I've been taught. So that's what I would say.
That's a good way to go. So you're right. Like, this is a fraud. Do you know how the scammer's going to get their cut here if they were to succeed?
Well, you mean how they're going to come out? They're going to get the 400 from me that I'm basically not the 400, the 3,600 that I'm discounting, if I could say that.
Exactly. So they gave you a credit card to say, hey, here's the card. Can you refund it? They're giving you a different card number.
Oh.
Completely different one than the one that it was made on. And what you could end up doing if your payment processor allows it is you could actually initiate the transfer to a different card, and you wire out $3,600 if you're not paying attention to a different card. They take it and run, and next thing you know, when that person figures out that their credit card was stolen, the legitimate person, they figure out their credit card was stolen, initiate a chargeback and dispute it, and now you're out $3,600 when that comes back on your bank statement.
I follow you now. I was thinking a little different route. Okay, so what we're doing here then is, one, paying attention, and we all experience it when we go to the stores. When they're issuing a refund, they want to put it back on the card that it was originally given. You don't want to give them anything else. So that's example number one on that. Number two is what I was explaining. It's far better to just void the entire transaction.
Absolutely.
And start over than try and kind of go back and forth with the single transaction and clean it up, if you will. So that story there, I'm assuming, is one that you've experienced?
Yeah, back in my early days, I was director of finance for a nonprofit, and pretty much that exact scenario happened to me where my spidey senses were tingling, and it seemed weird that someone would come out of the blue and donate this much. I reached out to my bank and said, hey, like, is there any way that someone could be trying to mess with us here? And sure enough, they're like, oh yes, this is a very clear scam. What's funny is, as I've gotten a little further into my career, I've heard from other nonprofit bookkeepers who have since experienced this. So it's been prevalent and happening in the industry for well over a decade.
Yeah, and it's very similar to what you'll experience in in retail type stores where people bring back product without the receipt, and they're just trying to actually game the system, and they don't have the card anymore that it was originally purchased on, so put the money on this card or whatever. So yeah, there's different attempts, and a lot of these things have been addressed in recent years, but still the scammers, they figure out workarounds, and they play on the sympathy of the people that are being spoken to or across the counter. And unfortunately, they work. Too often they work. And it's unfortunate when, as a professional, you're having to go to a client and share with them that an employee, someone in the business, perhaps the accountant themselves, didn't catch it until it was too late.
And that's not to say good things don't happen. As you pointed out earlier in the podcast, we don't want people to be, super doom and gloom now. But if there's ever something that happens for your business or one of your clients' businesses that's like, yes, what a blessing coming out of left field and just too good to be true, those do happen, but stop and check yourself, because that's usually one of the first signs that you may be at the beginning of a scam, because they want to play off your emotions. They want you to turn off your skepticism for a hot moment so that they can take advantage of you.
Yeah. So two things, and this is I think hugely important. One, you brought up the spidey senses, right? Trust your gut. If you've got something that's going off, be willing to check it out. Don't challenge that intuition that you have. Follow that intuition.
Absolutely.
It doesn't hurt. And so I definitely love the spidey senses. We've all got that experience and intuition that we can draw on, and let's just make sure we're using it. The second thing is because of the emotions being involved, try and step back from the emotions and just look at everything practical. Are they asking for exceptions to be done to the rules that you have? Those exceptions are typically telltale signs that something's not right. And so one of the things I would advise, in addition to the spidey senses, is if you've got protocol, processes, procedures, and they're asking that they be adjusted or violated, just this once, do me a favor, that should really be setting off those senses, simply because of the fact that they're having you deviate for a reason. The policies and standards that you have in place exist for a reason. Probably experienced something else in the past. Let's not repeat that. But more importantly, there's just good business practices. And just the case of the example of canceling the transaction and starting over, or issuing the refunds on the card that it was originally purchased on, those things exist for these types of reasons. So that's so true. All right. So what are some of the reasons why do you think bookkeepers and accountants are good targets for this? We talked about the fact that we're the gate and the gatekeeper. Is there something else that you would want to add to that?
We're removed from the situation sometimes. So we're not as closely tied into the operations as, say, an accountant or bookkeeper that's on site, just because we can't be there for every single conversation. And so trying to leverage that distance between us and our clients is an entry point for a scammer. And so that's how they're getting in. But also, technology just keeps getting better and better, and are we keeping up with it? I got one more story for you, but another bookkeeper, I was a firm owner that I was interviewing before this podcast. She got a call one day that all of a sudden many of her clients, I think it was 3, all had a similar issue where their employees didn't receive their payroll checks. So she immediately starts to investigate, because these employees were all on the same payroll system. And they were all her clients. So she's thinking, yes, my firm is the common denominator, the common thread between all of these. And come to find out, what this person had done is logged in, well, at least what's believed, we still don't know for sure, but the payroll company is investigating it. But they're thinking that they got her login credentials and went into these employees' accounts and didn't add new employees, which would trigger an alert in the system, didn't add a new payroll to specialty one-off run things and have it send out an email, hey, your payroll has been processed, but just went in and changed the bank and routing information for a bunch of the employees so that the money was routed to a different account that this scammer owned, and they ended up walking away. I wish I had this in my notes. It was the high teens, $18,000, $19,000 worth of money gone from these collective clients. And this bookkeeper I was talking with, she had to go and file a claim with her insurance company and follow up with all the clients, work with the payroll processor. It was a giant mess to try and get that, all because it was believed they got her login credentials. And when it comes down to figuring out what the issue is, the payroll company has the ability to log in their system and see the IP address that it was filed under, whose credentials, and they're telling it was all her, but she has no way to verify it. If it was a hack on their end where there was some vulnerability, she doesn't know, because she can't see that back end. So how do you have the tools and resources in place to protect your firm in an instance like this? Like, that's the big question that I think we need to spend the most time talking on. Because in this scenario, she wasn't even a participant. There was no, reaching out to her to do something.
Well, this is where I would bring up such things as the two-part authentications that exist, making sure your staff isn't sharing passwords or using, login as me, here's mine, go ahead and use it. Anytime you start to, let's say, take advantage of all these security measures by going around them just because of, hey, I'd like it to be simple. You use the same password. Everybody in the company uses the same login. All those types of things, as convenient as they may seem, they're just increasing the vulnerability of what it is you're doing. And we're already discussing, dealing with payroll and bank account access and so forth. There's a lot of sensitivities that we need to be protective of, especially for our own clients.
No, you're hitting the nail on the head. In fact, two-factor authentication, I know so many people that hate it because it gets in the way and, oh, did the text message come through in time, or it was sent to someone else on the team and so we have to get it, but then it timed out. And so they just decide not to go with it. And a scenario like this, I talked with her and she did not have two-factor authentication turned on at that time. Odds are, if it was someone got her user credentials, that would have caught it. I mean, they would have had to have access to her phone or her authentication app, whether you use, LastPass Auth, Microsoft Auth, Google Auth. There's a whole bunch of options out there, but really simple security step that, sets you back 5 seconds every time you log in.
Exactly. So just on that note, just because we're talking about a few of the things that we can have, is definitely have policies in your company that you're not sharing passwords. And when possible, you each have individual logins so that you're able to then identify who did what when. The other thing is this two-factor identification or authentication. That's huge. It's very simplistic because it basically sends to another device, such as your phone, a text message confirming that you're actually attempting to do something. Just literally 2 nights ago, my wife on her cell phone started getting texts saying somebody was trying to log in and was sending the code, but she wasn't attempting to do it. So someone was trying to hack in, but because of the two-part authentication, she was obviously getting these notifications, and we were alarmed, but it was working as it was exactly supposed to. So that's something. What are some of the other things that we could be doing that may be either standards or processes that would help us have a little sense of security about what it is we're doing?
Yeah. So, 2FA is my favorite. Beyond that, let's talk about one of the beauties of our profession is we can work from anywhere, wherever we want. I told you my firm is entirely remote and my team loves it because they'll show up on the morning lineup and today they're in Florida and then the next week they're back in Georgia and then they're in Michigan, and they can work wherever they want as long as they're getting it done. But with that, sometimes they're in coffee shops, restaurants, and using public Wi-Fi.
Yes.
And that's a big concern because my guess, majority of the time that credentials are stolen, it's because you're over a public network where they can see that activity. And having a VPN, which for those of you that don't know, that's a virtual private network, you can get these softwares super easy. Nord has their own, Norton. Most internet security has this as a built-in feature you can use. But essentially, if you have it default that the moment your computer connects to a network, it turns on the VPN, it's going to scramble that data. And without getting too complex, it's going to protect your information. So even if you're on a public network, those hackers aren't going to be able to see that information. Having that always turned on as the default, and not in a system where you have to go manually turn it on, because that time you connect until you turn it on, anything that gets sent is still visible. But having it default always turn on when you connect to a new network is super important. So I think the VPN is one of the easiest ones. But as you also brought up, Roger, one of my favorite things is good passwords.
Yeah.
Right? There are some great brute force algorithms out there to guess passwords. And brute force is, for those of you who don't know, it's just they try hundreds of thousands of standard passwords over and over, especially on sites that don't have timeouts or max number of temps. They'll just try common ones. So, 123 password with an @ and a capital P and an exclamation. Like if I just mentioned one of your passwords, you need to change that right now. They'll go through and try all these. If you use a password manager, which there is Keeper, not the bookkeeping app, but there's also Keeper, there's LastPass, there's Dashlane, there's a whole bunch of them out there. I'm not going to promote any specific one, but this helps you A, generate good passwords, but B, have a forum to share them amongst your team if you need shared credentials for something. This keeps it safe. And what I love when we use LastPass is that majority of my team can never actually see the password. The Chrome extension of LastPass puts the password in the cell, but they never see it. So if my employee leaves, they can never take that login credential with them, which is fantastic. I just have to turn off their information. And Roger, I don't know if you have a specific password manager you love.
Well, I actually use LastPass. So as you're speaking of the various ones out there, of which we're not endorsing necessarily anyone in particular, but definitely the technology, and LastPass is the one I use. And I would actually have to just kind of put a little insert here. The passwords in the past, it was always ones that I could remember, and it was me using the same one over multiple platforms simply for convenience of I remember what I'm saying or using. But then you had a lot of platforms coming in that said every 3 months or so, you have to pick a new one and it has to be different than the previous. So now I'm getting all these variations. Well, when you use a system that like LastPass retains that for you and does so securely, one of the things that you can do is there's oftentimes suggestions that are given on these platforms when they say, hey, just use this long, basically incoherent type password. And I'm like, originally, I didn't want to use it because I'd have to remember it. I don't need to remember it. So I select those that are basically difficult and I use them, and the system just then keeps or remembers that for me. I'm just needing to remember how to get into LastPass, and as long as I have that access, it's going to populate these different logins as I'm going about. So what you're describing is not just useful and helpful, I think it's very beneficial to me personally.
And it's super secure in the sense that, it itself has its own two-factor authentication that I have to update just to get into that system. So I've got a super complex password to get into LastPass, two-factor auth with my phone, but then I've had instances where I log in from a different computer or on my computer, but I'm over a network that it doesn't recognize that I'm in a new location. LastPass still says, hey, we know you got your two-factor right. We know you got your password right. But we don't recognize this location you're trying to access it from. We just sent you an email. Can you also confirm? So now a hacker would have to have a way to spoof all three of those to get into my LastPass account, which just gives me added benefit. And not only just security for my own stuff, but knowing that my employees have to go through this as well.
Now, I hate to do this. I hate to, but I know that some of my listeners are going to definitely bring this up, even though we're recording it today and it's going to air in the future. But there was in the news that LastPass was hacked.
Yes.
None of these things are foolproof, but they're just like a lock on a door. It deters the robber, it slows down the robbery, and oftentimes causes someone to go elsewhere. So if you've got LastPass coupled with two-factor authentication, coupled with the fact that you're each using individual passwords and so forth, all of these layers further ensure the lessening of the likelihood that anything's going to happen. So let's just put that out there.
Yeah, and if you want to go to their blog and look at it, I did see that release. First of all, they were very proactive in letting us know.
Yes.
But secondly, they also said, hey, they feel on their end that they're content with the level of containment and that nothing was, no passwords and credentials were released, but people did get access to some source code. So. Yeah. That's fair enough to bring up. Roger, I'll even move on though, talking about people stealing passwords.
Yeah.
There has to be vulnerabilities there. And one of the easiest ways is if the computer that your team is working on is not dedicated for work, right? If you have employees that are doing work on a personal computer where their kids are also downloading games from the internet and going to websites that are unprotected, and it's easier avenue for malware to get onto that computer, you're really setting yourself up for failure. And so making sure that your team has that dedicated laptop, yes, it's an expense to your company, but gosh, is it cheap insurance compared to paying out a giant settlement if you're the source of a client losing lots of money.
Amen to that. I'm going to date myself in age here, but I'm back from the day when there were actually what we referred to as dumb terminals. And this was where you would have at an office, basically no one having really a hard drive. It just was hardwired. You had the cables running throughout the office. Well, today, that's what the cloud is. We basically each have everything online. Everything's, the platforms, the systems. We're not getting disks and drives that we're uploading onto our hard drives, programs. And so the fact that these people can be given a very simple laptop, typically, robust enough to run the applications, but simple enough that it's only a few $100s, perhaps maybe $1,000. That's huge when comparing that expense to what you just said, the liability of what you could be billed for if you were the breach. And that advice is hugely important. So definitely having a dedicated computer, something that someone is just using for that, it minimizes the malware situation. It minimizes other issues. I like it. That was great advice. What else would you add?
Yeah, I got two more here that I definitely want to touch on, but everyone's hearing this expense of extra computers and having a password manager, which you pay for, and VPN service. And yes, that's an expense. And really my biggest expense also is my outsourced IT security team.
Yeah.
As we started to grow, first of all, I was spending more and more time helping my employees with just tech issues, password resets, logging into email, something failed on Google Chrome, permissions. I was having an issue keeping up with that instead of just doing actual work to further my company. Am I allowed to shout out to my team? I'm not endorsing them or trying to promote, Roger.
No, please go ahead. I'm happy to have you do so.
Yeah, no. So IT Tech here out of Salt Lake, it-tech.us. I hired them about 18 months ago, and having a team that is not only there to help support my employees, but actively monitoring all the traffic on my employees' computer. And when I say actively tracking, they're not, doing screenshots and making sure they're working and being Big Brother, but they can monitor the websites and making sure that nothing malicious is coming through, and they can scan the networks. They can remote shut down or even wipe a computer the moment I ask them to. So if an employee either has their computer hacked, or if that employee gets disgruntled and leaves, they can remote shut it down and make it as good as a paperweight in an instant. They help make sure that we stay IRS 4557 compliant, which is important if you're doing taxes and other information. So they were one of the best investments I have ever reached out to. And the thing I love about them is they'll occasionally even do they'll do phishing attacks on my team where they'll look like they're a reputable company saying, hey, there's a problem with your account, click this link to log in, and we'll get reports on if my team fell for, clicking on a link that wasn't from the reputable company and actively going through it. Just little trainings, and they test me as well. I don't know when those are going out, but really making sure that we keep that on a swivel, our heads on a swivel as we're looking out for this. But the other point I just touched on, which is my last one, is training. Like, Roger, do you know what the weakest point in any firm's security is?
Oh, I definitely do. It's the individuals, and I'm including myself. We're all susceptible to it.
Yeah, that sack of flesh on top of our shoulders is the weakest point in any sort of system. And, as you pointed out earlier, you can't have a computer deviate from a set protocol, but you can have a human do that. You can, as you pointed out, if a scammer's asking us to change up our normal processes, it's because it's easier to get a human to do that than a computer. And so, having those phishing campaigns that your IT firm can do for you, having SOPs in place where there is a clear document of here is our procedures and you do not deviate, and giving them a decision tree on how they should approach certain situations. One example I love that I heard of was an IT firm was testing it out. And let's say my firm, specialtybk.com. Well, the IT firm bought the domain specialtydk.com. So from bookkeeper to Dook, DK, Delta. Just that, and then they would have sent an email from the owner, in this case, Tyler. So from Tyler at specialtydk.com and saying, hey, sorry, I'm away from my desk right now. Like, can you send over the login credentials for so-and-so? This information's I can't get it in the password manager. They would send something like that. Now, it's possible that this scammer once sent me an email that I responded to. They got my email signature, so it looked like me. And then they went to my website, saw the name of an employee, saw on social media that one of my clients shouted out to us, so they know that they're one of our clients. So they can put it all together. They could reference the name of a client. They could reference an employee on my team. They could pull my email signature and send an email from specialtydk.com and try and social engineer a failure in our system. And so having SOPs that we never share emails over or passwords over email. That's a great system to have in place so that even if someone got through all of our security protocols, we would be protected.
Yeah, I can't agree more than just basically saying you're spot on with this. The human element to this is usually the weakest link in all these things. The two-factor authentication, the VPN that you were talking about, the password manager, all these things really come down to we oftentimes deviate from the SOPs, the standard operating procedures, and we break it. I'm going to share with you just the story of this week. I got an email. It was from Facebook, I thought. And when I got the email, it was saying something or rather, I can't even remember what the thing was, but I happen to have a firm that manages our Facebook platform and some campaigns and so forth that we're doing there. And I just sent it off to them because it was something that I'm fortunate enough that I can delegate. Well, I sent it off to them and they quickly replied saying it was, a fishing expedition type deal. Well, the point is I could have been the weak link here simply because I chose not to verify something before sending it off. They, being the recipients, could have said, well, Roger sent it, so Roger obviously meant to send it to me. Roger obviously knows what it is and would want me to take care of it. And they could have clicked on it and gone down that rabbit hole because I sent it to them. And so I could have been what caused that whole thing to really blow up. And so it's that lesson learned of, oh crap, I maybe I need to look a little bit more at the things I'm forwarding on or delegating. We all just need to, I think, pause and take a breath, because I'm busy, you're busy, we're all busy. And sometimes what we're doing is we're just too quickly pushing things along. And that's where we're getting, I think, a little hasty and making mistakes. So this conversation here, as scary as it is I think for two reasons. One, when we were having the conversation a number of weeks ago, it's simply to just bring to people's attention that there's things going on that you need to be aware of. And if you're just conscious of it, I think you're going to be less prone to be susceptible to it. Would you agree?
I would 100% agree. And, as you said, we keep using this word scary, but can I put the cherry on top of this?
Oh, please.
Do you want to know the good news?
Good news, please.
The good news is if you know about all this and you have all these systems in place, and yes, I know there's so many of you that are probably hearing this and saying like, gosh, I can't afford that. You know who ends up paying for all of this I put in place? My clients.
Client does, yeah.
And my prices, yeah, a lot of clients get sticker shock, but you know what sets me apart is I have all of this that I go through to protect your data. You don't get that with an in-house bookkeeper. I carry insurance on my company, which all of you better have errors and omissions and cybersecurity insurance. If you don't have those two separate policies, that's a big issue. But I tell my clients that I have insurance, and you wouldn't want to hire an electrician to work on your house if they're not insured, because if the thing burns down, you want someone to go after. Same thing as I tell them, hey, we carry insurance so that if anything happens, that was definitely on us, you have some sort of recourse. We've never had a client need us to take us up on it, but that sort of assurance is why we can charge those higher prices. We walk through everything we do to keep their information secure and point out if you did this with an in-house employee, there is no way you would get this sort of benefit.
No, I appreciate you kind of bringing this full circle. What the services are that we're providing as outsourced accounting, bookkeeping, tax professionals, there are obviously some costs and expenses because we're running a business. We're not doing anyone any favors. And these things ensure that what we're doing is quality services. We're protecting our clients' assets and resources, and we're putting into place these SOPs that ensure that what we're doing is basically quality work. But that's just the tip of, I think, this huge iceberg of the quality of services we're offering, the fact that being outsourced, we bring perspective to the whole meeting. I mean, there's a lot going on here, but yes, I'm glad that you pointed out that these expenses are borne by the client. This isn't meant to eat into the margin. It's supposed to be paid by them.
It actually even improves the margin because you're not just passing on direct costs. This is built into your firm's value proposition.
Yeah.
This is something that sets you apart. So you should look at this as a way to elevate the profitability of your firm, not a hindrance.
I appreciate you saying that too, because so often when I'm having conversations with firms and they're trying to justify price increases, they're trying to explain to their clients why the change in the cost for their services. One of the things that's very helpful is taking a moment and rather than just merely increasing the fees, is finding what are some things that you can bring to the table that you're not currently offering. And if you were to go out there and get some of the things that you're describing, LastPass subscription, not too costly, but if you now pass that along to all the clients that you're working with as a minimal increase, the value of that is so much larger that you're able to justify the price increase that you're going to extend to them. And you're able to deliver that increase with this explanation of you've put into place within your firm these various things to take care of them as a client. And these things are intended to actually improve the services that you're providing. You feel good about the value that you're bringing to this discussion tied to the price increase that you may be doing. That's something that is huge for a lot of the people I talk to, because so often they want to increase their fees, don't know how. This value add makes that decision a lot easier.
Absolutely. No, I think you're hitting the nail on the head there, Roger.
Very, very good. So let me just, we're wrapping this up. We've got a few more things. I'm just kind of curious. A lot of the listeners, I'm sure, are interested in, first of all, the fact that you've got employees working remotely. I know we talked about it before. What advice do you have in finding and retaining offsite employees?
Oof. Yeah, I mean, without giving away my competitive advantage. No, I mean, you got to make it. This has got to fit their lifestyle as well. And so finding good employees that are going to do well for your firm, like they've got to be a culture fit. They've got to have good expectations from day one, but you've got to support them. And so having a good onboarding experience and a good training resource library is incredibly valuable. I know for us, every employee goes through one solid week, and I'm trying to beef that up to 2 weeks of just intro videos with then time to play around and learn our systems and tools before they ever get into even touching a client's books. We've got, during our interview process, a way to tease out just at least some level of experience and showing that they share our qualities. So having a very robust hiring process, it allows you to solve a lot of the potential problems down the road if you just get the right people early on. And Roger, as much as I hear this from every client and prospect that nobody wants to work right now, that's not true. Lots of people want to work. Every time I post a job, I get like 400 applicants in a week. People want a job that provides flexibility into their life. The people you hear saying this are the people that are still offering $9 an hour for a 10-hour-a-day shift where they're away from their family. Yeah, nobody wants those anymore because the economy is shifting. And so, there's a lot of people that are interested in entering our world, and there's plenty of opportunity. I mean, we've got a forced demand economy here for the accounting industry. So, lots to benefit from for everybody.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. That's great advice. Regarding the training, our training, it's also 2 weeks. It's actually a little longer, and it is on a learning management system. It's made up of modules, and we do have our new employees go through a very specific regimen. It's meant to actually ensure standard operating procedures, continuity. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said about having a formalized onboarding process for our employees. So that's well said. Let's talk about the clients real quickly. Obviously, you have all of your staff remote. The same is true for your clients. You're an outsourced accounting and tax firm. So how do you just retain those relationships with these virtual clients?
Yeah, FaceTime does everything. And I don't mean FaceTime, the Apple product. I mean like actual FaceTime, whether it's virtual or just even in pre-recorded videos or even hearing my voice. But if you become the Wizard of Oz and you are just a man behind the curtain that's emailing them about their accounting, it becomes a very impersonal relationship quickly, and your clients don't feel that connection to you. Whereas if you are getting in front of them on a video call frequently, if you're sending them the pre-recorded videos to review their financials, walkthroughs on how they do some of the tasks that are needed from them, they see your face, they become more familiar with you, and that endears them to you. They trust you more, and that relationship becomes a lot easier to manage. So really putting in a thoughtful system that allows the client to see your face, see your facial expressions, hear your voice, that goes a long way in client retention.
That is perfect. Exactly what I expected you to say, and I knew you would. The whole idea here is we can't just be simply texting and emailing. They've got to see your face. They've got to hear your voice. They've got to connect to you as a person, and that's the rapport you're needing to retain them as the client. It's much more than just the quality reports you're providing, the numbers that you're giving them. It's got to be a relationship. The fact that you're genuinely interested in their business, their success, the curiosity goes a long way, but it's the face, hearing your voice, seeing your face. Excellent. I love what you said. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of wrap this up. And as I wrap it up, I want to come back to you for a final thought. So real quickly, regarding our conversation today, one of the things that I think is very, very important is, although we've used the word scary a few times, it's just something that I think we need to be aware of as a profession, that we do have access to, and we are a vulnerable point, that for our clients, we need to be taking the necessary steps, as Tyler was pointing out, the two-factor authentication, the internet security, the password management. If we could just go to that point of having some standard operating procedures that we're utilizing to ensure the security of our data internally, our clients, that's huge. But the second part of that is we did end by pointing out that the hugest vulnerability here is the individual, ourselves, the owners included. We need to do training. Just top of mind, slow down. Don't open email attachments that you're not expecting to have received. Making sure that when you're receiving emails and so forth, that you're noticing little variations of whether or not it came from Facebook, as I shared, or as Tyler was mentioning, the actual email. And just being sensitive to that, trusting your spidey senses. You have intuition. Trust it. You have the experiences to fall back on. Trust it. Just slow down and be willing to do that. But by no means celebrate the successes. You do need to celebrate the successes that come through. Not everything is a scam, so let's be mindful of the fact that there's abundance of opportunities out there and take advantage of those. The second thing that I just wanted to point out is I really appreciated his quick and concise way of finding, retaining, working with, training employees from a virtual standpoint. He's built an amazing business on that principle, as well as client relationships, being visible, having them see and hear you. That's excellent. It is still a personable business as much as we enjoy the numbers. So wonderful conversation today. Tyler, thank you for sharing all of this. Any final thoughts on your part?
No, I think the biggest thing I want to reiterate, and this is nothing new for what you haven't heard over the last 45 minutes, but this is all value add to your business. This is something that's going to set you apart and make your clients trust you that much more. Now, it might be a price increase when you go to add these things, but if you tell them, hey, the way we do business is we want to take care of our clients. Here's what we're implementing. Our prices are increasing because of it, but we feel like it's the best way to serve our clients and the only way we'll do business. You pass it on like that, and your clients, majority of them, are going to completely understand and appreciate your initiative and looking out for them. Again, one more shout out for my IT team, just because I love them and I want to do everything I can. IT Tech here in Salt Lake. They're awesome. Tell Jeff and Steven that Tyler sent you. But yeah, just this is value add for you folks.
Excellent. And peace of mind. We're running a business. Let's have peace of mind for the services that we're providing and pass that peace of mind along to our clients, knowing that they're working with a quality firm. And I love that. So with that, let me go ahead and just kind of give a wrap up of everything that we've discussed here by, first of all, encouraging you, if you've not already, subscribe to the podcast. It's through that subscription that you can set your notifications to be made aware of the various episodes that come out each and every week that you do want to hear and take advantage of as I bring on the experts to help share insights, perspectives, things that you ought to be doing to, in fact, have the premier accounting firm in your area. Also, go back and look at past episodes. We've had on excellent guests, experts in the field that you want to actually go back and hear. Find the topics that resonate with you, topics ranging from marketing, selling, pricing, quality accounting services, mental health, client retentions, and so much more. Each of these topics are meant to actually help you work on your business to ultimately help you get paid what you're worth. So go back, subscribe, and set those notifications. Also, at the same time, if you would like to apply these principles, learn more about them, feel free to reach out to us at Universal Accounting. You can contact us at 801-265-3777, or you can visit us at universalaccountingschool.com. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care and be safe out there, everyone.